All right, all right, all right. Welcome to this episode of Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. My guest with me, Jason. Jason Kehler from Atlanta. Welcome.
Thanks, Coach.
Half of my face is currently numb. Coming from the dentist, I did not anticipate being numb, so I'm still numb. So bear with me if this may sound strange.
Perfect.
All right. So, gentlemen, sit down, relax, and enjoy this episode of Parables from the Pit. All right. Jason, graduate of Warrior Week 52.
Yeah.
You and I were just talking about in the gym exactly 6 months ago.
Today.
6 months ago today. Okay, take me back. Take me back 6 months ago from today. Take me back to the first time you came across the message of Warrior. Where were you at? What was going on in your life? What was happening to Jason at that time?
September 2017. I weighed the heaviest I'd ever weighed in my life. 292 pounds.
Holy balls.
Absolutely disconnected from my wife. Living in the same house, but living totally different lives. And a Facebook ad of Coach Garrett on the beach. And he's walking back and forth, and all these guys are laid face down. And he said, "You don't know where you are. You came here with a bag over your head. Your wife doesn't know where you are. Your kids don't know where you are." And then he said something that sent chills down my spine, and thinking about it right now, it's doing the same thing. He said, "Men do not follow me because of the way I walk. They follow me because they do not follow me because of the way I talk. They follow me because of the way I walk." And that sent an arrow into me because I wanted to live and be able to say that. And I was not fucking there. Yeah, that really began. It split open the crack for me to start looking at myself.
How old were you?
Well, it was only 18 months ago, so 46.
So 18 months ago you came across the ad.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. And it took you a year before you kind of make the move.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were 42.
46.
46. How long were you married then?
18 years.
18 your kids?
At the time, 12 and 5.
And you were in a space where you felt no purpose? What was it? What was missing? What was missing? If you roll back 18 months ago, because now you've completely fulfilled, what like compared your version sitting here today with the version of 18 months ago, what would you say was missing? Because sometimes when we are, most of guys hearing this, right, that are resonating with this will say, man, something is missing, right? Roll 18 months after going through the experiences and filling yourself up with whatever the fuck that was missing, and then you're sitting with it fulfilled, you can look back and say, I know exactly what the fuck was missing because I have it now.
I didn't have connection with God. I did not have connection with my wife. I did not have purpose in business, without a doubt. And like I said, to start this off with, I mean, under the self-shame of my body, man, I was just scared and hiding and, running from myself.
What do you think caused this disconnection with God? What caused that for you, man?
A lot of victim stories. My wife was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder after a breakdown at work. And that led us down. That was in 2005.
Yes.
That led us down a path for 10 years of massive debt. She had to quit her job. She was the primary breadwinner at the time. I had to step into that role. I didn't know how. Making it up as I went along. But I'm the victim of her
Situation.
OCD problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not being able to get out from under that and solve it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't pay enough
Mm-hmm.
to get it fixed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And young baby,
Yeah.
and just trying to fucking make my way one step at a time. And it's not that I didn't have family support and love. I just didn't know how to deal with it.
2005 is where shit started going south for you.
Yeah.
So life was happening before that.
Yeah.
Life was going.
Yeah.
And suddenly this thing out of nowhere drops and creates a turbulence in your life.
Total
Right.
kick in the balls.
And as a result of it, anger arises, victimhood, stories, and imagination starts kicking in, right? There's the reality of what is happening, and then there's the imagination. It started imagining that why, and why am I a victim of this? Why is this happening? Why me? Why us? And so on and so on. What did you find as answers during those years?
Well, I drifted
Mm-hmm.
away from her.
Hmm.
I felt like I couldn't talk to her because that just led to, OCD coming back, and none of my issues felt important or
Prioritized.
We got to talk about them or anything because it's about her.
Mm-hmm.
I became just the money, provider,
Yes.
right? So I only had one purpose, and I was having a hard time doing that.
Yes.
Physical connection, completely shot, and I guess I turned away from what I've known as God and our church and the community,
Church.
and all that, and I don't even know exactly why at the time I did, but
and that's a point to emphasize on, and some of the guys are listening because you and I were talking in the gym, and you were saying, man, you start listening to Parables from the Pit like a motherfucker, like you were listening to every episode. And I shared with you that quite frankly, we don't really market this podcast. It's the purpose of this podcast is to leave a legacy for you as you come and you share your story. But we ask at the end of this podcast for one share, meaning that I don't want you to share this on Facebook and Instagram. I don't want to become fucking popular. We don't want popularity. If you can take this just like the arrow that hits you, and if you can take this like an arrow and send it to one guy that that's all we ask. Because eventually the truth that is discussed here is what is very common among men, right? Because we talk about pain here, and we disguise and we get rid of like the mask, and we just go and straightforward talk about the pain. And so you were talking about how this, like, you were the bread maker, and how you started disconnecting, like the physical disconnection, the story or the imagination that your problems didn't matter because it was all about her. A lot of fucking imagination linked to stories. So we use imagination because it's easier to talk about imagination, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's fucking stories. Right. You build these stories for yourself, and then you create distance. You must have built a story for yourself as well, and you created this disconnection with God. But then because of so many stories, and because of time, you look back and you see this massive amount of gap between the person, let's say your wife or God, and you. And there's this gap, and you look back and you cannot come up with an explanation of how was this gap created. Kind of like a financial gap, right? When you start using credit card, and then you look at the end of the month, it's like, motherfucker. Like, how did it sum up? Let me look at, okay, $89, $79, $279, $599, $12.99, $3.99, $1,000. Like, suddenly you look at $12,000 is the fucking credit card bill. It's like, how the fuck is this possible? Because I just cleared $10,000 last month, and now I have another $12 on this.
Right.
So the gap is not seen because of all the small
Compounding
transactions.
interest on top of
Compound, man.
that. Yeah.
So you're sitting in that space, right? And this message hits you hard. What did you do?
Well, I started looking for more.
Mm.
Right. I dove into Googling Garrett J. White.
Yeah.
Wake Up Warrior.
Yeah.
Warrior Week. And it led me to a advertisement or something on Warrior Con.
Mm.
And so I went home and I showed my wife one of the videos that Garrett had put out on the time, and I think it was just like those the pain and the path and the possibility.
Yeah.
One of those, and I showed it to her, and she immediately shut off.
Okay.
Right? She didn't want to watch it. She didn't the cursing and all these things, and I said, well, they have an event going on in California in November, December, and I want to go.
Yeah.
And she said, no way.
Mm-hmm.
And that shutdown kind of sent me into the closet, almost a voyeur, like trying to figure out how do I get more of this, right?
Yeah.
But not let her find out.
Yeah.
And then the podcasts, Date Your Wife, Warrior Wealth, Parables, all came out in January. And so I asked her to listen to Date Your Wife with me on maybe episode 4 or 5 or something like that, and just slowly began to kind of, introduce her. At the same time, I continued down looking for as much and trying to get as much of Garrett's message as I could. And I got the book. And then the book came, and I did nothing but sit on the couch and read this book for days at a time. And I started trying to live the lifestyle off of the book. And then King's Kit came out. And I was entered into King's Kit 1. That'd be 12 months ago now.
Yeah.
And you remember one of the basic protocols in there that we had to fulfill involved your family.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was in South Carolina on a business trip.
Yeah.
Had to drive back to Atlanta 5.5 hours. And that protocol was due on this Sunday of that week. And I cried for 5.5 hours, afraid to do this protocol with them. That was probably the first real crack in repairing my marriage to where it stands today. Sharing all of that was inside of me, sharing all of that was going on with not only her, but with my children. Like trying to, I have a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old. They don't understand, Dad. And trying to explain to them that I have guilt and shame and that it's okay to cry. Things that I haven't expressed or talked about ever. And that was a really powerful emotional moment that propelled me into, hey, this really could potentially change my life. And I just inside I made a decision to go all in. Came to Warrior Wealth in June of last year with my business partner, and we signed up for Warrior Week at that event. I end up coming to Warrior Week in October, being part of the 52. And the journey from there, 6 months to today, well, as you know, it's epic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's epic. I'm a completely different human being as I sit here in front of you than 12 months, than 18 months ago.
So as you said, it was a journey. It wasn't an event. It wasn't one event that changes. It was a process. I mean, even when you come to Warrior Week, yeah, it's an event, but at the same time, well, Warrior Week is a fucking journey by itself.
No doubt.
Both the 30 days before and as well as the 1 week. The 1 week seems like a fucking year. Time gets collapsed, and then also what follows after that, the journey to have you prepared and then come back at another event that we have here called the Return of the King, which like it's a compounding effect of progress, right?
Yeah.
Not once there is not once anybody's seeking for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
It's a compounding effect of progress. It's a compounding effect of closing the gap. The same gap that took small amount of time for it to be created, now it's closing back.
Yeah.
And so when you close back the gap and you're like connected once again with your wife, connected once again with God, how does that feel? Like, how does that make you feel as a man? And how does that make you feel as a producer inside a business? How does that make you feel as a guy that's like, what, 49 now?
Yeah, 48, yeah.
48.
Yep. It's hard to find the words to express the elevated sense of life that I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that I get up with a purpose that is more than just making money.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that I matter, that I fulfill not just purpose for me, but purpose for other people, and that people rely on me and want me.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably a big thing too. Is that reconnection with God and with my wife is that I matter and I'm wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something that I know a lot of men struggle with, and I've struggled with it too, and I don't even know why. I'm not even sure where it came from, but is self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to definitively open my eyes and be like, people give a shit if I'm around.
Yeah.
And they desire to have me around.
Yeah.
I'm enough. Just me.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly epic place to be when you've spent decades not feeling that, not, you know, and wondering what am I doing here?
So if you would describe your relationship with your wife right now, right? How would you describe it currently?
12 months ago, we never had a date night in probably 6-8 years.
Mm-hmm.
There was 2 to 3 sexual connections a year.
Mm-hmm.
The change and the description now is not only do we have a regular date night,
Mm-hmm.
but on top of that, the deposits that I put into her on a daily basis, fulfilling her needs, has created a space where we've leveled up tenfold and are going more.
Yes.
Right? It's not the perfect relationship.
No.
It took, 10 years to tear it down. 6 months isn't gonna, suddenly snap and repair that.
Yes.
But to go from, 2 to 3 times of sex a year to 1 or twice a week.
Yeah.
To be sought after by her.
Yes.
To have her respond to my messages every day, and engage me in conversation. We collide a lot.
Sure.
We're going to have to continue to collide in order to be able to truly lift,
Yes,
right, our marriage. But we pulled things off the table that were there impeding us.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a growth phase, right? But it's a growth phase together. It's a discussion about where are we going, not where am I going, or what do you want?
If your wife would be sitting here right now, right, instead of me today,
Mm-hmm.
and she would ask you the following question, what would be the answer? She would say, Jason, why did you follow that voice? Why did you do something about that moment where that message came through you, which was, hey, the message from Garrett, which is, men don't follow me because the way I talk, men follow me because the way I walk. Why?
Scared out of my mind, I realized that I was destined for this being the pinnacle of my life, this moment. I was only going to get worse. And that message challenged me with, are you going to get busy living or get busy dying? And I want to live. And so, I chose the road less traveled by, if you will. But like I said, just complete fear running through my entire body. I knew that I had to make the choice to follow that voice.
And I'm going to have you consider it, if it wasn't for the restriction and the situation that involved your wife, right? Thinking about 2005, and I have a different perspective on this shit. Whenever somebody labels somebody something, I tend to take the side of the person that's being labeled. That's just me. Most people would take the side of the labelers. I automatically, not knowing anything, I'll take the side of someone that's being labeled. And then, because I know there's truth in there, right? There is no such a thing as a label. It doesn't exist. Labels are man-made. We organize labels. We call certain people certain way. We call certain races certain way. We call certain cultures certain beliefs certain way. And they may be the facts, but I don't believe that it's the truth. And the truth, my truth, may be very different from somebody else that is sitting here and listening to this, or yours. The fact may be that label may be a fact, but I don't have to accept it as the truth. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So, whatever the fuck happened in 2005, right? And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the 10 years, if it wasn't for the restriction that she put on initially you following this, and if it wasn't for your continuous seeking, like ultimately what you were seeking the past 18 months was seeking you as well. And in that process, the restriction and everything else that took place was a way for you to continue to seek. And when it all happened the way it needed to happen, even to a point where the breaking point was you literally facing your wife and your kids, and sharing that experience. And most of us would have never done that. You've done it because it was structured, it was a process you believed in, and you wanted that experience to take place. Most of us would dismiss that. I'm like, well, I do it without it. It will be the same thing. I'll see what's going on.
Right.
Like, that's the alpha kicking in and assuming and deciding and justifying.
Right.
But then you were told that you can either do this half-ass or you can go all in and experience it. And you chose to go all in. The King's Kid experience was an experience that brought in close to 10,000 people.
Wow.
And a lot of people went all in. Some people never showed up. That's a no-show.
Oh, right.
But the majority of people went all in. The majority of people give themselves that opportunity to experience something for them. And Warrior opened that space. Warrior created that experience. And as a result of it, change happened in the way people think. And what it was an awareness that came to them by them giving themselves a permission. And that's exactly what you did. You give yourself permission that day, and that opened the door. That opened the door for what was seeking you to come inside. Otherwise, you would still have the door locked in. And it would knock, but you wouldn't hear.
Right.
Because life is just too busy.
Right.
Life is just too busy and it's too chaotic.
Right.
And then you have to make sure that you manage the chaos. And in managing the chaos, you hit panic. Suddenly you realize you're like, fuck, man, I'm not having the relationship that I want, that I desire.
Right.
Well, whose fucking fault is that, bro?
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, if you don't have what you want, whose fault is that? It's very clear. It's very clear. How did you show up in that relationship? And so the story is told on one way, which is, hey, here's how I felt. But then when you look back in the past decade, well, how did your wife felt inside of that? Right? Where is her pain? Where is her pit? Who took her into her pit? Who was the guide for her? Everybody's trying to heal her. Everybody's trying to treat her. But who was the guide? And in that space, when you're in chaos, you panic in that relationship. And then they're like, there's so much hate and there's so much blame, let's say, less than hate, the blame and hate and anger. And blame, hate, anger, and shame and guilt. It is just a vicious fucking circle. And it's digging that gap, digging that gap, digging that back, digging that gap. And as much as you want to express things like, I love you, I want to fucking die for you, it doesn't come out. It's crazy. As much as you want to make love to her, it is so much frustration that you're like it's better off because it's not even worth trying. Because every time I worth trying, it's a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
It becomes worse than it was. So what would your wife say today to you in the efforts that you've done in order to create the spark that you guys had? 18 years married, right? You said?
Well, it's 20 now.
25,
Yeah.
right? So you chose to rebuild the past 6 years, 8 years where things have gone south. But you collapsed time. Yeah, 6 months. You can't recover the 10 years. But who says that this 6 month it's not the projection for the next 40 years? Like you're building the blueprint for the next 40, 60 years. And truly, that's what it matters.
Yeah, she would totally say that I didn't show up during the 10 years.
Yeah.
And she would be totally right.
Yeah.
I shut down. I left her
Yeah.
to the people that were treating her, to the enablers.
Yes.
Right. And I took away empathy.
Yes.
And sympathy.
Yes.
The last 6 months has been about, first of all, recognizing that and stepping up and claiming responsibility. I did this. The other thing, or the other piece to it has been about sharing specifically what I truly think about her, about our marriage, about our life, and the need to have her at the core. I often, as I reflect about our relationship, she should have left a lot of times. I'm shocked she didn't. In the heat of those moments when that I'm recollecting now, so why I pause from talking, is I can see that man. He wasn't even a fucking man. I can see that guy in that physical moment with her and the baby, and not showing up in so many ways that I'm just blown away that she didn't leave. I can only imagine that her faith in God is what kept her there. And she ultimately was the rock through all of that. And we're not past the medical diagnosis right now. As a matter of fact, my oldest son is also in that camp. So the two of them struggle with this disease and medication and various things. But by recognizing, taking responsibility, moving all of that off to the side and focusing on the things that are important and that are true and that are fact about who she is, about how she has shown up, about what she's done for our children, and about how she's maintained a faith in God that allowed me, almost like a gravitational pull to come back and have another opportunity. That conversation constantly, daily, of outpour of love and appreciation, just like Garrett, talks about in I know he does on the Date Your Wife podcast. Waking up and doing that with a focus has allowed us to compress that time and rebuild a connection and a spark. And damn, I'm grateful.
What if that same faith that she has, right? What if that same faith she has, it's her revolution against everything else that the world is pushing upon her? Medical condition, and now you're saying your son into it. All these conditions, whatever the fuck conditions are, right? What if there's one thing that could override all that? and her believing that deep down inside, her truth doesn't have any condition. Her love is unconditional for you, for her son, the daughter, and everybody else, right? What if that's the fundamental way she operates? And because of that belief system, you never left that magnetic field of love. There was a gap, but the gravity of the faith never let you go. And you came back to it through an experience that you kind of forged for yourself. No one went to your door and said, hey, bro, you got to come into this. No one sold you this.
Right.
No one sold you this path.
Right.
This was a puzzle that you put together pieces by pieces. And you talked about it during this podcast. I mean, you talked about how you grab one fucking piece at a time and you started putting it together. Yeah. Sometimes you're in a closet putting these fucking pieces together in the dark. And just like you continued putting the pieces together. Continued putting, and then now that you see the puzzle. So really, the puzzle that you have right now in front of you that has come together doesn't tell you that you lost 10 years, but it tells you that you have a blueprint for the next 40 years. That's the problem that most men struggle with. Most men struggle with change and transformation to become what they were.
Yeah.
Man, I want to become like what I was. I want to lose 50 pounds just like I did in 2006. I want to be the man I was, which is a chase to a dead end. The man you were is no longer is.
Right.
The man you are is the potential of the man you could be.
Sure.
And so we have this ideology of chasing who we were, because who we were at one point happened to be in our mind, in our imagination, bigger than what we are.
Right.
But if you look at the wall right now, it says here, I am bigger than I was. That's a mathematical formula. That's mathematics. You are bigger than you were. So why the fuck would you want to go back to a smaller version of you, even though your imagination is telling you that you were fitter 20 years ago,
right,
that you were a better husband 20 years ago, that you made more money 20 years ago? The physics and the maths of the world is telling you you are bigger than that you were. And the idea becomes, how can I chase a bigger version of myself?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, beautiful journey. But not to look back and say, I've lost 10 years, but to look forward and say, here's how I'm going to build the next 50 years.
Yeah.
And things like the conditions and the labels and those things are just obstacles on the way. They're just obstacles on the way. Just like the way you figured out how to close the gap for you, now you're on a quest to close the gap for her, for your son, for the family. There is a gap right now between who they are and what the world is telling them who they are.
Yeah.
And both of them, I can tell you 100% without a doubt, are in a battle or in a revolution against that, which, by the way, I fucking support. I support any revolution of evolutions because that's how we grow. Labels are designed to keep you where you at.
In a box.
Think about it. Every time you're labeled with that possibility. That's it.
Right.
Even if you're a fucking great athlete, right? You're labeled as a great athlete. That's it. That's your box.
Right.
As an actor.
Couldn't also be a genius or whatever.
Labels just keep you in a box.
Right.
And think about the greatest actors, right? Fucking popular, tons of fucking money, boxed in.
Yeah.
So, what do you see in the next 50 years?
Man. The concept of possibility that we talk about sometimes, that you don't know what's around the corner. You can't see around the corner. I have to take every step that it takes to get to the corner before I can see around the corner. That journey that I've been on, that I'm on now, it mirrors back to me from my sons, from my wife. So to project that 50 years out, it's like talking about the moonshot like we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's like it's a concept that I can't even fathom right now, you know? I get messages back from what I send my son every day. his communication skills are elevating at a pace that I can't even imagine. The words that he uses as a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Better than you and I.
Yeah, and the encouragement. Hey, Dad, it's progress. It's not perfection, right? For real.
Yeah, well, it's good. They
Yeah.
speak the truth.
Purpose. If I'm going to label it,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about purpose. Continuing to find and fulfill my purpose. I believe, Sam, that my purpose on this planet is that I have to continue to grow and level up and change so that I can help others
Yeah.
find and fulfill their purpose.
Yeah.
And who knows how that'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
It might happen in a business conversation. It might
It's
happen
already happening in this conversation. It's already happening in this podcast. It's already happening by you sharing your story. And like somebody sitting there and relating to your exact story.
Mm.
Like it's the exact same fucking story. And I'm like, oh, man, other than this being a divine message, I cannot believe that why am I hearing this?
Right.
Like you got to think through this. There is a man sitting somewhere in the same exact situation, not yours, yours, not mine.
I'm with you.
And to him, that's that arrow that is going to pierce his heart. Just like Garrett sent it to you, and you're sending it. There is a reason why you're here. There is a reason why you committed to be here, to commit and share the message.
Yeah.
And to continue to share the message. And ultimately, what fueling you being here and what's fueling you in the past 6-8 months is one single thing. And that's the same common thing for every single man that sit into this podcast, or every single man that came into Warrior, every single man that has shared the experience. And that is you're no longer alone. You're no longer alone. You're not operating alone in your business. You're not alone at home. You're not alone. You have other men that support you. You have other men that actually give a fuck. You don't have a network. You actually have a brotherhood that is behind you. Your wife has a brotherhood. Your wife has brothers behind her, which is a great feeling. Because if tomorrow is a group of people that attack you emotionally, then you can stand behind your wife along with the brothers defending the attacks, the assaults.
Yeah.
You don't feel alone. Your wife doesn't feel alone. As a result of you not feeling alone, your wife doesn't feel alone. And if she doesn't feel alone, she just feels more happy. You feel more happy. It's a beautiful concept that we fucking overcomplicate. But if we bring it to the truth and the simplicity, that's what it is. That's why we made the phone call to Avi today. Because sometimes imagination and stories like pulls you away, but then time also kicks in, and what happens is that gap starts happening between us and Avi. The story right now is fresh, but the gap starts happening.
Right.
A year and a half from now, Avi's on his own on his own island.
Gone.
The group is here, so now you're like, fuck. He will feel alone.
Right.
And you will lose a valuable brother that could have been behind your back. That's why this happens all the time. This happens all the time. Like when we don't feel alone and when we feel great, assault starts happening on our feelings.
Yeah, the enemy attacks.
Enemy, maybe it's ourself. Maybe it's our own imagination that allows it.
I mean that collectively, right?
It's
all.
Maybe it's an assault. It's an assault that happens, and most of the time happens in our brain because we start assuming and we start imagining. But the fuel of everything is because you're not alone anymore.
Yeah.
You feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. What two things came to mind. One is a concept that you had said and taught us. When I stand in truth, I don't have to defend anything.
Yeah.
So what I love about that is with our brotherhood, with and our wives have a sisterhood. They have a Facebook page.
Yes.
That connection of all of these families coming together. That truth never has to defend itself.
No.
And it's all, nothing's impervious, but I mean, as a collective, since we all fight for the same thing and we all know the same thing, There's no hiding here.
No.
Way less chance of ending up on the island by myself when everybody's involved.
Yeah.
And having our wives and families be part of that. And you've been to the events,
Yeah.
Goggins, and seen the men come together.
Yeah.
That this unit, I think it was Coach Sean said to me, when after I got out of the Marine Corps, I didn't have any men.
Mm-hmm.
I was just out in the world by myself. And he said, you didn't have a unit. You lost your unit.
Yeah.
And he's exactly right. I needed to find a unit again.
Yeah. The unit you lost, you not only that you lost the unit, you missed operating by a sense of integrity. When you look at a military system and like the teaching inside of our military system is heavily around integrity. If you don't have integrity, you don't belong in the fucking military system.
Right.
And you'll find out very fucking quickly. Like you pack your shit and get the fuck out of there. Either you quit or you're out of there. Right? So it like the military system forges man of integrity. And inside of that integrity, there's a brotherhood that is forged, and there's a common cause. And then at one point, from many, many guys that have shared this, that have been deployed in battles and in situation, like it's no longer about defending the country. It's no longer about defending the interest of politics. It's truly about defending the man next to you and just having, just protecting the man next to you, to your right and to your left.
Yeah.
And that's what keep these men going. And this brotherhood is forged for years.
Right.
And when somebody steps out of that environment and is no longer in that environment, what end up missing, number one, is the emotional aspects of that brotherhood. And the gap starts happening. Although you try to keep it together, but because the organization is not there to organize it, then life happens and you start getting disconnected. So the brotherhood fades away. But along with that, there's a sense of operating with integrity that fades away. Yeah. Some of it is kept, right? You pay your taxes, you go to work, but there's this feeling of fuck, why am I lying in some other areas?
Yeah.
And I don't like how this is sitting with me because I was forged as a man of integrity.
Right.
Now this is like in my system. This is like I feel like I need to take a fucking shit every fucking hour.
Right.
Because it's in my system and it's not going well with me.
Right.
I mean, that's what's shared with the guys coming in. And same thing with you.
That's the sickness I felt.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
Yeah. That fucking integrity piece, man.
Yeah.
That you don't lose, but you don't get to practice in an environment that promotes that.
Right.
Right? And so that's what Warrior did, right? Warrior brings back that sense of, hey, man, we're going to operate by telling the truth. Like, there is no fucking lies.
Right.
And it's so hard for so many other guys to even believe that that's possible.
Right.
Because everybody else on the outside tells you a different story.
Sure.
We've all been lied to. Where's the trust? But then everybody has to do what you did, which is one step at a fucking time.
Right.
Some guys are crazy to go all in right away. Other guys, one pillar of the onion, like one piece at a time, and you put it together. So, great to have you here, man. Final words for the audience as we wrap this up.
Without a doubt, there are a lot of people that are suffering by themselves and in pain, that if they just took the one step you described, could actually find the life of joy and happiness that they truly want. It's the step I took.
Yeah.
And I would only encourage them to take the one small step. But whatever that small step is, but face that fear and take the one small step, because you can't see around the corner. You can't see the gifts that are waiting around the corner without walking to the end of the street. So take the step.
And if somebody's listening right now to this, right now, and is resonating with everything that you said, or even some of the stuff that you fucking said, maybe even some of the stuff that I said, and it's resonating with that, what would you tell him now?
Don't wait. Don't wait. Act on the urge. You can't let the stories of fear hold you back. You just can't. You got to break through whatever it is that you're resonating with. You got to connect that. And you have to go. As scared as hell, run straight toward it.
Beautiful. And you heard the man. If you're resonating with this, also share this message. And the way we want you to share this message is simply taking it forward to one guy. Don't share this on some public places such as Facebook, Instagram. Like we're not looking for massive shares. We're not looking for popularity. We're looking for an arrow that's going to pierce someone in the fucking heart and has an awakening process. And there is a man in your life that you most probably know that could use some of this conversation. Just send him to say, hey man, check this podcast out. Listen to this. What do you think? Listen to it and what do you think? Like, give him an instruction to actually do it versus just sharing. Because a lot of times we share shit and nobody fucking actually looks at the shit that you shared. They'll look at it and say, oh, fuck, it's an hour podcast. I don't have time to listen to that. Okay, I'll check it out. Never checks it out. Misses the gift. Tell him, hey, I want you to listen to this, man, and just send me back like one question about this. So send me back what your thoughts are. I care enough to send you this. I listened to this, bro. It fucking like resonated with me. And if you're hearing this and this is your calling to actually help somebody else, it's as simple as just sending a link to him. And you can find the links of the podcast on warriorweeknow.com, also on iTunes and Stitches. You can find the podcast. You can subscribe to it. You did, I mean, if you want to leave a review, and it's up to you. But that's not what's going to make a difference here. Yeah. There's enough review on there for somebody to go ahead and fucking listen. So, gentlemen, thanks again for being on the call with us. Jason, honored to have you here. Great to be here and sharing your story. It was amazing, man, to have you here.
It was awesome. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you all on the next one.